As a little girl before she passed, that them having to move and relocate. My mother's family come from Colorado, and there's a whole history there that required us to be relocated again to this reservation that we're at now. So it's called the Uinta and Ouray Ute Reservation. The Uinta are the Utah Utes, and the Ouray portion are the Colorado Utes. So we have about 3,500 tribal members. We've got about 3.5 million acres, which is really a drop in a bucket when you consider Colorado and Utah. But we are in one of the central areas of oil development, and our Uinta Mountains are Utah's main source of water. And so that's where we reside today. We're looking into new development into hemp, and also possibly a railroad to come out towards our area to make it easier for the oil to be transported out this way. So with that, I welcome you again all to Ute Country, and ask the Creator take care of all of you, and we come together as one, Nanama, to accomplish good things for all us human beings and all the animals, and of course Mother Earth, all my relations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm originally from Spain, but I chose to live here in the state of Utah, and I just want you to know how beautiful the land is here. And I'm confident that everyone here will attest the same thing. They love this place, and I have had many friends that have actually returned to Utah just because of its beauty. I will be presenting some few remarks, and then after my remarks, we will have Dr. Astrid Timene, President of Utah Valley University, also provide some remarks. Following her, Mr. Robert Skinner from the United Nations will be our next speaker. After him, Honorable Franz Kolb from the State of Utah Governor's Office also will be speaking. Following Mr. Kolb, Bishop Todd Budge, Presiding Bishopric, Second Council on the Presiding Bishopric of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints also will speak. Then we'll have a musical number provided by the, actually not a musical, but a dance performance provided by the UVU Dance Ensemble. And the director, Professor Monica Campbell, she will give a brief introduction about the dance. Then we'll have remarks by our youth representative, Lauren Taylor. She's from Australia, and she's a Utah Valley University student. And the closing remarks will be done by Mr. Ramo Damodaran. He's also a Why Matters Conference Executive Board member. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, if you need some Spanish assistance, you can just look at this monitor. If you like some French assistance, you can look at that monitor. So we're global. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an historic event for our university community, for all institutions of learning, for civil society, and for the United Nations, as we begin the first International Academic Conference on the Sustainable Development Goals. These goals are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and improve the lives and prospects of everyone, everywhere. The 17 goals were adopted by all 193 United Nations member states in 2015 as part of the 2030 Global Agenda. The purpose of this conference, rooted in the necessity to academically address the Sustainable Development Goals in particular, and the 2030 Agenda, is to harness the strategies, expertise, and resources across the widest spectrum of academic thought, and to unleash a range of education initiatives that ensure inclusive, safe, and equitable quality sustainable development that may serve as a blueprint for higher education institutions, civil society organizations, private sector corporations, and government. Why matters? The name of the conference came from a conversation that I had with my dear friend, Mr. Ramu Damodaran, just sitting right here in front of me, in New York in February 2020, just 3 weeks before we faced the pandemic. We discussed the recent civil society conference in Salt Lake City, and I expressed to him that working with civil society to promote the 2030 global agenda was impressive, and that the outcome was beneficial. However, I expressed that universities could play a very significant role as we address all the issues related to the 17 goals in our classrooms through research and discussion. I mentioned to him the need for academic institutions to be a strong voice and add valuable support to this global mandate. In my conversation, I expressed the relevance and commitments that universities should have to carry the torch of sustainability for the improvement of the quality of life and of humanity. I reiterated the impact of the goals and the very real needs they address. And I said to him that they were important and those goals matter to me. He listened to my plea, he looked at me, and with his immeasurable wisdom, he simply said, if it matters to you, you already have the theme for your next conference, why it matters. Thank you, Ramu. Look what you have done for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here at Utah Valley University for a period of 3 days to answer the question, why it matters, related to the 2030 Global Agenda and the respective 17 Sustainable Development Goals. From the human perspective, we will discuss and attempt to answer this crucial question of why it matters to work to eradicate poverty, hunger, and ensure good health and well-being for the world's population. Why it matters to provide quality education, to be mindful and respectful of gender equality, and to reduce inequalities. Why it matters to enjoy clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, and industry, innovation, and infrastructure. As we are the stewards of this earth, why it matters that we build strong and sustainable cities and communities, why it matters to be responsible in our consumption and production, why it matters to take care of all life on land and below water, why it matters to be committed to improve the quality of our lands and our environment by taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. And last but not least, why it matters to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, to provide justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. This matters to many of us. And that is why we're convening this conference today. Through the next 3 days, we will address all the 17 goals through 13 thematic sessions, which includes 52 panelists. In addition, over 100 academic presentations, formal and scholarly paper, as well as oral presentations, will be delivered on this campus. And I appreciate the UVU faculty for their collaboration and support. Additionally, we will have 8 side events, which even today at 1 p.m., we will be discussing sustainable mining and water provided by the engineering firm Reliable Controls. This will be a wonderful side event. And we will have additionally events on interfaith dialogues, diplomacy, sustainable universities, a discussion led by the University of Westminster in London, and I appreciate the 10 individuals that have come from London for this dialogue, and an amazing fashion show related to the sustainable fashion industry. I appreciate the entire team of designers who have arrived from Colombia and Spain and are here today. In the organization of this conference, we wanted to make sure that besides talking the talk, we wanted to be pragmatic and support the community at large. For this reason, tomorrow, Thursday, at 3 p.m., we expect every one of you expect to join us in a service project as we assemble close to 2,000 newborn kits for refugee mothers. We are grateful for the community support shown by the Just Serve organization and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and to all volunteers who will join the service project. And I'm also grateful for the UVU student support who have organized a free tomorrow, Thursday at 2 p.m., right in the Science Atrium. Go over there, talk to the students. They will be giving you free things. Whatever they don't want, they don't use, they'll give it to you, and we can exchange goods. I would like to make a special mention of the need for better global understanding. I'm talking to all of you out there. Today, we should have welcome here on our campus 52 additional scholars from 11 different nations. These individuals wanted to share the research and experiences in person, but unfortunately, due to visa constraints, they were not able to join us. It is unfortunate that policies prevent them from coming, but I assure you, folks out there, that there are no barriers in sharing knowledge, and your voices will be heard through the publications as a result of this conference. To you who are watching these opening sessions from lands in Africa, Cameroon, Nigeria, Mali, Uganda, Philippines, Peru, Dubai, all of you that were not able to come, to you, I want you to know that you are on my thoughts. And I value your commitment and vision to your voice and why it matters. And I dedicate this conference to all of you. Someone may ask, why this conference at Utah Valley University? The UVU Office for Global Engagement was instrumental in bringing the 68th Annual Civil Society to Salt Lake City, the first United Nations Global Conference held in the United States outside New York headquarters. Today, we mark another important day as we host the first international academic conference. Universities play a significant role in educating and preparing students to enter the workforce and to be competent citizens. Looking ahead, sustainability needs to become an area of unified intellectual activity, and universities must explore opportunities to promote this vital work. I am confident that institutions of higher learning have the knowledge, have the resources, and the possibilities to make a difference. To our students everywhere, you have an unbelievable responsibility. You are the best of the world has yet to produce. All the issues and challenges that we face as we try to move to higher levels of sustainability and find solutions needed today, you quickly realize that all these issues matter. We cannot afford to wait any longer. The time to take action is now, is today. We need your thinking. We need your talent. We need your drive. Therefore, let's work together to build a better place for all and for all the generations to come. I am deeply grateful for this institution and its leadership who enable us to have these conversations to make a difference. I am grateful for a president who has a vision for this academic community and her support for this conference. It is now my great honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Astrid Jimenez, President of Utah Valley University. President.
I'm just going to borrow the microphone, sorry, because if I stand behind the pulpit, nobody can see me. So, how are you? All right. I hope you're here today with your whole selves, just happy that we are having this amazing conference here at UVU. Mr. Larry Sespuch, I want to thank you for your prayer and your blessing and your reminder about the land on which we stand. And our mantra here at UVU is a place for you. And so I hope you go back to your people and say UVU is a place for them. We have over 800 full or fully Native American or part Native American students at UVU. And counsel from people like you will help us know better how to succeed with these students so that they have a great experience at UVU and they leave with the training and credentials that will help them become leaders for your people and your aspirations. So thank you. I also want to thank my colleague, Dr. Baldomero Lago, for all of his hard work in bringing us here today. I want to thank Mr. Robert Skinner, who is there for the partnership with the United Nations. And I want to thank Bishop L. Todd Budge, who knows me from other situations. He has been a great friend to the university. So very quickly, my comments, why are we here? Why the SDGs? You see them on these boxes here. And I was just reading the Russian, Mir Pravosudie Effektivny Instituty. Are there any Russians in the audience? Okay, there's one over there. So I see all of these boxes here, the 17 SDGs. And I do believe they are very aspirational. But they encapsulate the subjects and the matters that are central to our continued existence as human beings and to our continued well-being and our continued happiness. And they remind us, by the way, that what John Keats said, the poet, no man is an island. These things are problems and they are also opportunities for cooperation, for solutions, because these problems cross borders. They are not limited within the boundaries of a country or one city or one community or one individual. We own this. And I believe that this is in fact central to why we are here today. So the SDGs are important. That's the first point I want to make. They, not just why they matter, but they matter, period. Secondly, why the United Nations and why Utah Valley University? UVU in many ways encapsulates these SDGs. We care about education, we care about gender equality, we care about water, which is a challenge in Utah. We care about creating a better world. We are a very large university with 43,000 students enrolled, and we are open admission. So we believe in all types of human potential, in equalizing opportunity so that people can be empowered to help themselves, even as we face many challenges. Universities are part of a brain trust, and I think there's no better partner than the United Nations, because the United Nations is a great convening body. As Rob Skinner said earlier, there's a lot of talking at the United Nations, and sometimes people say, well, that's too much talking. But the talking is necessary because if we don't communicate, we don't begin to understand one another and what we can do together to solve problems. So I really celebrate this partnership with the United Nations and Utah Valley University. These are the right conveners for something like this. Finally, I want to say, so what? So what? What will we leave here after 3 days of conversation? I think one of the first so whats is the intellectual and policy output of this conference. There are probably 75 papers, 1,500 pages of documented research. That is important because you create something that anybody can look at later when they want to understand a problem and the potential solution. So we are leaving that, we're creating that. It's digitized and it's going to be accessible to everyone. I think another so what from this conference is the networks that we're going to create. Conferences are important, often not so much in plenaries like this, but what's going to happen outside later, what's going to happen during lunch, is we are going to find people with whom we have philosophical and pragmatic common ground. And then we will be able to say, hey, I want to work with you, or I want to get in touch with you again. So those networks are really important. And the final so what is something I already said at the press conference earlier today. This conference is about hope, and hope is the opposite of despair. When we think about the war, Russia-Ukraine, when we think about the environment that's been destroyed, when we think about species that are getting destroyed every day, the natural growth old forests that are gone and are never coming back, it is so easy to fall into despair. It's so easy to feel powerless. And I think the reason for getting together is precisely so that we can educate ourselves, understand what's under our control, and make better choices as individuals, as families, as communities, and as citizens of the world. So thank you for being here. Let's learn. Let's have a wonderful time. Go to the fashion show. I can't go. Go to the service project. Nothing makes people more happy than doing something good for others. Thank you all. It's an honor to have you at Utah Valley University.
President Tuminez is a very difficult act to follow, I think, as all of you probably know well here at UVU. But I'm Robert Skinner, the Chief of Partnerships and Global Engagement at the United Nations in the Department of Global Communications. And I will make some remarks, but first I would like to introduce a video by my boss, who is the Undersecretary General in the Department of Global Communications, the Chief of Global Communications at the United Nations, Melissa Fleming.
Dear students, scholars, civil society representatives, government officials, distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the first International Academic Conference on the Sustainable Development Goals, titled Why It Matters. I am delighted that this conference is bringing together such a broad group of participants to share knowledge, research, and best practices on how to make the Sustainable Development Goals a reality. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the Global Goals, were adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Today, we are facing one crisis after another. Hunger and inequality are on the rise. Mis and disinformation are feeding hatred and division, while women, young people, and the most vulnerable are being hit the hardest. Conflicts are raging, and the climate crisis is feeding into floods and fires, which are ravaging our homes and forcing millions to flee. The global goals recognize that addressing these serious challenges can only be done when all countries work together in global partnership. As the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres noted in the opening to the United Nations General Assembly last week, we live in a world where the logic of cooperation and dialogue is the only path forward. Academia, civil society, and the private sector play a critical role in determining our collective path forward. Your commitment to open dialogue and collaboration and your support to the universal principles of the SDGs is inspiring, because education is key to advancing progress for all people. Over the course of the conference, I am confident that your important discussions will drive concrete solutions and actions. Actions that will help keep the promise made in 2015 to leave no one behind. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like to personally thank Melissa as well. I know she would have really loved to have been able to be here. I think after seeing the turnout here today and just the warm welcome that we from the United Nations have received from UVU, that she would appreciate it even more, the opportunity to be here. But unfortunately, schedules did not permit that. But I think you can see her commitment to the SDGs and the way that we think about the SDGs at the UN and bringing communities together and making sure that we're all working together. I would like to start by thanking a few people, really. President Tuminez is amazing. The welcome you've provided us here, remarks at the press conference and then here just now, really incredible and inspiring, and it's really been a pleasure. And, Dr. Lago, the work that you've done to put this together has really been amazing. I mean, it's been a pleasure for all of our team to work with you to make this happen. But we know that, the real work is done on the ground here at hosting the conference, and UVU has done an amazing job to bring this community together and and bring people from all over the world here. So a big thank you to you. And many of the other speakers we'll hear from today, Mr. Franz Kolb, members of the conference executive board, Bishop Budge, all of the young participants and distinguished guests that are here, and the scholars that are here to present their research, their papers, and their drive for action to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. As President Tuman has said, the SDGs are aspirational. They're going to be a challenge to achieve, but we have to keep trying. We have to keep going, and we have to keep working on them. So I would like to welcome all of you here on behalf of the United Nations, the team that is here with us, the UN Academic Impact Team, the Civil Society Unit team that's really been the driving force from the United Nations. I just have the good fortune to be able to be here and welcome all of you on their behalf. And because this really is an important conference. Why it matters, why the SDGs matter, why we need to keep working at this, and why we need to focus on it to create a better world for all of us. The remarks you've heard already answer a lot of those questions, but we have to continue answering not just why, but how. What are we going to do to drive achievement for the SDGs? And I think we're going to hear a lot of that about how folks here are driving research, driving work with communities. The universities are such a key component of driving change within communities. They're so important to communities. You can see that just by looking around and seeing the community engagement with UVU in this particular case. And so it's an honor to be partnering with this extraordinary institution to bring together academics and civil society from truly all over the world. Just walking into the lobby of the hotel across the street this morning was just really stunning to step in and see people from all over the world already interacting, mingling, talking to each other, and sharing thoughts and ideas, a true testament to the world coming together in this particular case. Since 1945, when the United Nations was created, we've always been inclusive of civil society, academia, private sector, philanthropy. It's always been part of the work we do from our inception, coming out of the ashes of World War II. But since 2015, when the SDGs were created, we've really doubled down on that effort. We've recognized that these immense challenges that we all face need greater engagement from all of those communities I've mentioned, and particularly in this case from the academic community and all the institutions and areas that the academic community touches on. And that includes obviously civil society, faith-based organization, private sector, media. We need to recognize that these issues are out there, and we need all of us raising our voices to talk about them, and then how do we look at these issues and then drive the solutions, which is what this conference is all about. And as my boss, USG Melissa Fleming, indicated, the whole concept of this is we want to leave no one behind as we're looking at this. We are a global community. We need to look at it and say, in thinking about the SDGs, with which Dr. Lago laid out so succinctly and so well in his remarks, it seems like a complicated agenda. It's a lot to take on, but it all connects, and it's all about taking these situations on and achieving them for people and for planet. I've worked in public service for many years of my career in philanthropy with the United Nations Foundation. I started my career as a public defender in Chicago, working in the community there, worked with the U.S. Foreign Service and government, and now with the UN. So I've seen the UN, and I've seen the communities we work with from a lot of different angles, with the opportunities to meet a lot of very impressive organizations and people that all are trying to drive positive action to achieve the SDGs and make the world a better place. And the one lesson I've learned, in thinking about service, partnerships, and just engagement amongst each other, is that we can really only do this if we work together. I think you're going to hear that a lot through the course of the next 3 days, and I think you've probably already heard that, but it's really true. As isolated entities or individuals, we cannot get this done. We have to work in community, in partnership, and as we heard earlier from Larry Sesbuch in talking about the stewardship and land stewardship that the Utes demonstrated with this land, that's a great example of the kind of work we all need to do together to keep driving change for the better as we try to steward, the world forward. And again, I always repeat, for people and for planet, because we can't achieve one without the other, and thinking about both. And thinking about working together and continuing, I do want to recognize the fact that a few weeks ago, Bishop Budge from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and who will address us shortly, presented a check for $32 million to the World Food Program on behalf of the church during a visit to Europe. So, You know, and this is a great example of how communities can work together, a faith-based community working with the World Food Program, supporting its efforts to battle the food crisis that is happening in a lot of the world as we try and, you know, get the grain out of Ukraine to the most needy in the world so that they can have an opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of crises in the world, but we do worry a lot about this food crisis. And so thanks to the church and thanks to Bishop Budge for contributing that and being a part of the effort that the World Food Program is performing to try and take on that particular challenge, which again, it's all interconnected. There's a lot of other challenges that are driving that, including the climate crisis that has impacted agriculture to such a great degree in parts of the world that now need this food assistance. You know, so civil society, academic institutions, you know, the private sector, philanthropy, faith-based organizations, you know, we can keep talking about all of the groups, but it has to be a coming together of all of us. And it has to work for all of us, particularly the most vulnerable in our societies. And of course, sitting at a university, being here at UVU, and seeing all the young people in this room, we have to do it for them, because I'm of the generation that feels like we have not done a very good job of stewarding the resources and the land and fighting poverty and taking all the issues on that are part of the SDGs. So we need to be thinking about them. We also need to be being incredibly inclusive of them, because they have answers, they have voices, and I think all of you sitting in this room, the students and young members of the community here, I hope that you'll raise your voices as you're in these sessions for the next several days, because we need them. You know, the world is yours, and your voices matter and your solutions matter. So please be an important part of that. I know some of you will be on stage, but those of you who won't be on stage, make sure you're engaging and learning and teaching all of us, because we need to hear from you. And so, an end of the community that's going to be presenting papers in part of the conversations here, thank you so much for being here. I know some of you traveled a really long way to be here, and I've heard some stories about, you know, missed flights, missed connections, and those kinds of things. And it's been a long travel for many of you, but we really look forward to hearing from you. Not only the research you've done, but the thinking about how we take that research you've done and we drive those solutions into communities so that we can really take the action that we need to get this done. So I personally am looking very much excited, looking forward, and very excited about what we're going to hear from all of you. And I feel like coming from New York to be here in Utah, you know, to wake up to a beautiful sunny morning in the mountains is a really inspiring way to get the conversation started. And I feel like it's an opportunity to really take this conversation in different directions from Utah to the world. Again, like Dr. Lago did, thank everyone that's watching on the live stream and is part of this conversation. I really regret that some of you were not able to make it. I did not realize that until Dr. Lago mentioned it. But we do hope that we can make sure that your voices are heard either through your research papers that are here, you know, or through your voices coming in on a live stream in some kind of way through questions and comments through the course of the 3 days. So again, I would just like to thank Utah Valley University for hosting this event, but more importantly, or equally importantly, thank all of you for being here and being part of the conversation. Only together can we drive the change we need. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Franz Kolb. I'm the Director for International Trade, Diplomacy and Protocol of the State of Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and that's a handful. I want to welcome all of you. President Jimenez, very grateful for your kind comments. So on behalf of the State of Utah, it is my honor to welcome this wonderful group and to congratulate Utah Valley University to this first international academic conference and also on the Sustainable Development Goals Wide Matters. I would like to, we are so proud here in Utah for this university and its commitment to international trade and international connections, and the commitment also to the membership of the United Nations. Department of Global Communication. It takes hard work and tenacity to bring together young people from all over the world to learn and share experiences on the important sustainable development goals. I would like to recognize today Mr. Felipe Quepo, Communications Officer from the United Nations, Department of Global Communications, and his colleagues. They are responsible for outreach, engagement, and global communication with civil society. It was in part because of Felipe's vision and determination that helped shape this conference. Thank you very much, Mr. Quepo. And of course, I would be amiss to not to recognize Dr. Baldomero Lago for his wonderful hard work and his staff in putting on this conference. As we have heard, in 2015, world leaders agreed to 17 global goals, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. They said that they have made progress, but there still is work to be done. And the goals are more important than ever. The climate crisis, ensuring no one goes hungry, human rights abuses, extreme poverty. Problems of this scale can be overwhelming, but the global goals are the solutions to tackling them. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, to transform the world are as follows. Goal number 1, no poverty. Goal number 2, zero hunger. Goal number 3, good health and well-being. Goal number 4, quality education. Goal number 5, gender equity. Goal number 6, clean water and sanitation. Goal number 7, affordable and clean energy. Goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. Goal number 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure. Goal number 10, reduced inequality. Goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities. Goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. Goal number 13, climate action. Goal number 14, life below water. Goal number 15, life on land. Goal number 16, peace and justice, strong institutions. Goal number 17, partnerships to achieve the goal. I made it a point here to make sure that we all read through them. We have seen also here some cubes and throughout this conference. I think they're extremely important. Ladies and gentlemen, we live today in an interdependent world. Actions in one country affect another. It is important that we work together. It is through conferences such as this that we will grow closer together, that we will learn from each other, that we will be made aware of some of the challenges we are still facing, that we will learn about the tools to make this a better world. It is through conferences such as this that we will be able to implement what we have learned, and that young people, the next generation, can come together and help continue to build a world that we want to live in the 21st century. In the next 3 days, many papers will be presented from individuals from all over the world. Some will be present in person, and some will participate virtually. Now, a piece of Utah history. Many years ago, in 1869, just about a 2-hour drive from here, a very historic and important event took place. The first transcontinental railroad in the United States was completed here in Utah. The rails were laid from the east and from the west. It was on May 10th, 1869, that a golden spike was used to signify the completion of the railroad. And I've got a golden spike right here. The golden spike was driven into the railroad tracks. It unified this country. It was through hard work of many people from many countries that came together to work on a task that seemed impossible. Today, over a century and a half later, this nation and the world has become a better place because of the good people who worked hard and came together. Today, on October 5th, 2022, we do not drive a golden spike into the ground. Today, young people and people from all over the world will be laying the groundwork, using the Sustainable Development Goals to shape a better world for many generations to come. On a personal note, I would like to share with you the impact that this conference has already had in my life. Over 20 years ago, I created with several of my friends the Kainach International Forum. The forum was named after a small village in the mountains of Austria where my ancestors came from. The forum was a venue that brought together international economic development professionals from throughout the world. 2 years ago, with the help of young people, we created a Kainach International Forum Sustainability Working Group consisting of 8 individuals from 8 countries. These, ladies and gentlemen, were delighted to hear about the first international academic conference of the Sustainable Development Goals Why It Matters. They worked hard and decided to submit papers to this conference. They overcame distances, time zones, and yes, COVID-19, and cultural barriers. I'm delighted to tell you that several members of the Kainach International Forum are here today and will be presenting during the next 3 days. So I would like to give a shout out to the Sustainability Working Group of the Kainach International Forum. Ms. Sabrina Reinbacher from Austria, Ms. Nafeli Karpodini from Greece, Parth Pansky from India, Paraskevi Karpos from the United States, Laura Bernal Hernandez from Mexico, Marina Rodriguez Tornero from Spain, and Ms. Lara Gil from Spain. This really makes a difference in people, what we are doing here, and in cultures. I'm so excited, some of these we have worked for 2 years with these young people to come here, and so we are so excited. I would like to encourage all participants of this conference to network and to get to know each other, to build bridges between peoples, cultures, and countries. It is my hope that these friendships will last a lifetime. May the first International Academic Conference on Sustainable Development Goals Why It Matters at Utah Valley University be the beginning of many such academic conferences all over the world. Before I complete, I would like to have Mr. Cuepo and Dr. Baldomero Lago come on the stage, please. On behalf of the Governor of Utah, I would like to present you with the Golden Spike. Dr. Baldomero Lago. Thank you, Baldomero. I wish you all good luck at this conference. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you, President Tuminez and Dr. Lago, for hosting this wonderful conference and for inviting us to participate. It's an honor to be a part of this important conference and to speak with you today about why it matters that we care for each other by caring for the earth. I also want to express my appreciation to Robert Skinner for all that the United Nations does. It was an honor for my wife and I to visit the World Food Program headquarters and to learn more about the good that you do throughout the world. It was a humbling and memorable experience for us. And Dr. Kolb, thank you for all that you do in Utah to promote trade and industry and sustainability in the state. I think in quiet moments, we can discern the holiness of the earth. Some of the first words of the prophet Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, testify of the grandeur of the universe and of our place within it. And I quote what he said. He said, "For I looked upon the sun, the glorious luminary of the earth, and also the moon rolling in their majesty through the heavens, and also the stars shining in their courses, and the earth also, upon which I stood, and the beasts of the field, and the fowls of heaven, and the fish of the waters. We heard about those dolphin-sized fish. And also man walking forth upon the face of the earth in majesty and in the strength of beauty, whose power and intelligence in governing the things which are so exceedingly great and marvelous, even in the likeness of him who created them. And when I considered upon these things, my heart exclaimed, all these testify and bear testimony and bespeak an omnipotent and omnipresent power. I think that reverence is the starting point for environmental stewardship. The entire system of creation compels our amazement, awe, and wonder. What a solemn responsibility we share in taking care of this divine creation. All creation, human, animal, plant, rock, the microscopic, the inert, and the organic, every diverse element exists in kinship and fulfills its purpose in relation one to another. Latter-day Saint Scripture explains this connection, and I quote, "The elements are eternal, and spirit and element, inseparably connected, receive a fullness of joy." And I think that is the fullness of the measure of the creation of the earth, is that we might all experience joy. We believe that matter is animated with spirit. The love of God permeates all things, all elements, and all beings. According to another scripture, I won't use too many more scriptures, don't worry. And I quote, "And out of the ground made I, the Lord God, to grow every tree naturally that is pleasant to the sight of man. And man could behold it, and it became also a living soul." For I liked, Larry, how you talked about plant people. "For it was spiritual in the day that I created it. For it remaineth in the sphere in which I, God, created it. Yea, even all things which I prepared for the use of man." God's presence and truth, we believe, abide in and through everything. God created the earth for the use of man, and each one of us is accountable to God for how we use it. This trust is not a matter of what we have the right to do to the earth, but the responsibility that we have to care for the earth. The earth is a gift to care for. It's not a possession to keep. One of my dear friends and a fellow church leader, Marcus Nash, said, and I quote, "All humankind are stewards over this earth and its bounty, not owners. And we will be accountable to God for what we do with regard to his creation. Though humankind is given dominion over the earth, the dominion should be a righteous dominion, one that is guided, curbed, and enlightened by the gospel of Jesus Christ. The unbridled, voracious consumer is not consistent with God's plan for our happiness, which calls for humility, gratitude, and mutual respect," close quote. The earth, well, all right, one more scripture. "The earth is full, and there is enough to spare." So says the Latter-day Scripture. If we act as good stewards, there are plenty of resources for the needs of our brothers and sisters around the globe, but not if used in excess and not to hoard from the poor. I love what Bishop Gerald Cosset, the presiding bishop of our church, says on this matter. I think he elevates the care of humanity as the culmination of this endeavor. And I quote, he says, "Our stewardship over God's creation also includes at its pinnacle a sacred duty to love, respect, and care for all human beings with whom we share the earth." Close quote. Learning stewardship takes time. Over the years, the church has worked to improve its environmental impact. We take seriously our moral obligation to take care of the earth and to be good neighbors and collaborate in society. We have previously and are currently engaged in numerous efforts to be wise stewards of the earth. But as I mentioned, it takes time And we are very humbled by this challenge and realize that we are not perfect, but we're trying, I think, as we all are. I would like to share some of these initiatives with you, and I think as I listened to about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, I think many of these relate and hopefully will make some small contribution towards the achievement of these goals. The church celebrates its use of sustainable farming and ranching practices, such as the use of cover crops, crop rotation, no-till farming, grazing management, and other greenhouse gas capture methods such as feed additives. Our guidance for soil management is to utilize existing material as much as possible and to maximize carbon sequestration. We have long encouraged our members and communities to grow gardens to improve the productivity of the land. The Church Humanitarian Services teaches families living in urban and rural areas how to apply sustainable techniques for food production, nutrition, diet, and home food storage. The church made an official statement in June this year highlighting the importance of water conservation, especially in areas where droughts persist, such as in our area. Best management practices are utilized for all new landscape designs and remodel projects of temples, which President Nelson keeps announcing at a quite rapid rate, meeting houses, welfare facilities, and educational buildings. At church headquarters alone, we have reduced our water consumption by over 30 million gallons annually between 2018 and 2022. We strive to incorporate water-wise principles of regionally appropriate plant material, reducing lawns, and efficient irrigation systems such as smart controllers, hydrometers, rain sensors, drip irrigation, and use of secondary or reclaimed water. The church has long-standing efforts to conserve energy and increase its energy efficiency. We have undertaken projects to improve heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems, and to install more efficient lighting, including the increased use of LED lights. The church's headquarters facilities department reduced its annual energy consumption across the portfolio by 17.8 gigawatt hours from 2018 to 2022, the equivalent of heating over 13 million households. The church also continues to explore energy opportunities and currently has on-site solar projects on meeting houses in various states across the country and globally. We aim to avoid material waste through our operations and to reduce, reuse, and recycle. In 2019, our print and distribution center recycled 3,679 tons of paper, 173 tons of metal, 303 tons of cardboard, 175 tons of plastic, and 55 gallons of used oil from machinery, mostly printing presses. The church continues to evaluate opportunities to reduce its use of single-use plastics and in some instances exceed global and local regulations. The church is also taking various strides to improve air quality and reduce transportation emissions. These include increasing the fuel efficiency of our vehicle fleet. We also encourage church employees to use public transportation options and other active transportation, such as biking and walking where possible. As you can imagine, the church owns and operates a significant number of buildings worldwide. As a property owner, the church has incorporated many sustainable design and construction principles and practices, including materials and site selection, prefabrication and modularization, and other practices that support the long-term operations and maintenance of the buildings. Given its global operations, the church has increasingly prioritized the adoption of local building materials and methods to reduce emissions and transportation costs, support local economies, and minimize disruption to the local environment by avoiding cutting down trees, erosion, and laying excessive water lines. The church owns several LEED and WELL certified buildings. When it comes to taking care of the earth, we cannot, however, afford to think only of today. The consequences of our actions, for better or worse, accumulate into the future and are sometimes felt only generations later. Stewardship requires feet and hands at work in the present with a gaze fixed on the future. The president of the church, President Russell M. Nelson, echoed this sentiment and I quote him as saying, "As beneficiaries of the divine creation, what shall we do? We should care for the earth, be wise stewards over it, and preserve it for future generations. And we are to love and care for one another." Our lives play out in the tension between individual and society, between past, present, and future. None of us is born a lone individual. As President Truman has quoted, "No man is an island." We come to this world with pre-existing relationships, bonds, and obligations. The 18th century statesman Edmund Burke affirmed that society acts, and I quote, "as a partnership not only between those who are living, but between those who are living, those who are dead, and those who are to be born." We find our place in the world through this continuity of relationships. When we look after only our present needs, we break this sacred social chain. We have an obligation to be good stewards, to pass to the future generations an earth better than we found it, through the habits and values of wise stewardship. We have the power within us not only to maintain, but to be co-creators with God in beautifying and replenishing the earth. In doing so, we not only show our reverence and love for God, the Creator, but love for His greatest creation, each of us, humankind. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you to all of those individuals that have spoken this morning. Monica Campbell, are you in the audience?
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Monica Campbell, Chair of the Department of Dance at Utah Valley University. We are so grateful to be here, and we are thrilled to bring artist representation to the vital conversations taking place this week. As we look to goals for a sustainable future, the one idea that resonates most deeply with me is the importance of community, personal, local, global community. We are intimately, viscerally interconnected, and this connection is essential as we strive for a more humane and just future. It is this concept of community that we will examine in today's presentation. UVU's Contemporary Dance Ensemble will be dancing an excerpt of the iconic work To Have and to Hold, choreographed by Daniel Shapiro and Joni Smith, originally premiering in 1989. At that time, the choreographers had been working in the Netherlands and returned to their beloved New York City during the height of the AIDS crisis. As they witnessed the crisis unfold worldwide, Daniel and Joni described an unrecognizable landscape as so many of their community, so many artists were taken by this deadly disease. This dance is their response. This dance is about love, about loss, about missed connections, and about the importance of holding on so tightly to our communities, because it is only with that support that we will successfully confront the current challenges that we are all facing. This piece remains as relevant today as it was in 1989. This is an excerpt of the dance, so we will be joining the dancers about 1/3 of the way into the piece. Please enjoy To Have and to Hold.
Well, that was amazing. I am very excited to be here right now. As was mentioned, my name is Lauren Taylor. I am a senior here at Utah Valley University. I am studying business management, and I am doing a minor in peace and justice studies. On top of that, I'm also lucky enough to be a part of the women's golf team here, and I also am a part of our Student Global Leadership Council, which has been amazing. So I want to start by telling you guys a story that I promise has a purpose. So when my family had first moved here from Australia, I can remember it was summertime, it was very warm, and I was hanging out with some friends. There were some girls, some boys, it was a mix of us, and we decided we wanted to leave my house and go do something fun. So I said, okay, just give me 1 sec, I'm gonna run upstairs, and I'm gonna put my thongs on, and I'll be back down and we can go. So I ran upstairs, and I came back down, and everyone was looking at me really funny. And I remember feeling like, what's going on? I was very confused. And I proceeded, but it continued. And I got to the point where I was so sick of it. And so I pulled a friend aside and I asked her, I'm like, why is everyone being so weird? And she was like, well, I don't understand why you had to tell everyone you went upstairs to go put a thong on. And I was like, what? I went to put my thongs on. She's like, yeah, but why do you have to tell everyone? I'm like, that I'm putting my shoes on? Well, I learned very quickly that thongs are flip-flops in America, and that's what you call them here. But, yes, sorry, I'm going to pull this up. Here's the point of the story. The same thing, the same object, 2 different words, 2 different meanings, 2 different truths. That is what the amazing thing about a global conference is like this. We have all come from different places, different lived experiences, and we're all here to share our truths with each other. Now, when I was asked to help welcome everyone to the conference, it was specifically as one of the youth participants and to sort of shed light onto our role in all of this. Now, I think I'm not the only one, but maybe I am, but we talk about this world being globalized and the interconnectedness and social media and how that has changed our life, right? And I've experienced this firsthand. I've been able to keep in contact with a lot of friends and family from Australia because of it. But there have been times when I have felt so small and so insignificant and so unworthy of actually affecting real change in the world. But that's why we're here. That's why I'm here, is to learn from others, other youth that are here that have been making change in their communities, and to learn what sort of a role we can make as we proceed and we move forward. And what's so amazing is that is the focus. A few months back, I was actually a part of one of the meetings about the conference, and it was with some UN officials who had come in, as well as some department chairs for Utah Valley University. And what was so amazing is the entire time, everything came back to the youth. The questions of how can we help youth feel empowered, and how can they be the focus of this conference? And how amazing that was for me to hear, because the people that I perceived to have all the power over this global communication, this global narrative, were the same people who were fighting for my right as a youth to have power. Now, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be here, because I am living proof of that empowerment that comes to the youth. It's because of this conference that I was able to step outside of my comfort zone and was able to write a paper about an SDG goal that I felt very passionate about. And through that process, I was able to meet some amazing people, and specifically an amazing woman who shared with me her experience of jumping over countless barriers and hurdles when it came to receiving her education. And here I am as a woman receiving my tertiary education with little to no barriers, and how humbling that experience was to learn about the battles and the challenges that people are still facing. But the thing is, we are here because we are proof of the progress and the progression that it takes to get to that point, because it has not always been like this. And that same progression is the type of progression that needs to be happening all over the world. And so I'm so grateful for that opportunity, and already for what I've learned as we move forward. And so I just lastly want to say again, a quick thank you to everyone. I know we've had lots, but so thankful to everyone who's traveled such a long way, especially the youth that have come. I'm so excited to hear your stories and to learn from you, because I know I'm grateful that I just got to basically walk across the street and I'm here, but there are a lot of you guys that have come from far and wide, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm also thankful for the entire Global Engagement Department. You guys have put in countless hours. I've walked past their offices many times, and I kid you not, they always had something else to be doing, were so proactive just so that this conference could happen. And lastly, I just want to thank all of the UN officials who are here and everyone that's put in so much time and who has such a focus on these SDG goals, because they're the ones who are setting these outlines and this groundwork so that we as youth know what sort of progress needs to continue to be made and how we actually have power over this global narrative. So yeah, I'm very excited to hear from you guys, and I promise that everyone that's here that has a story to tell, your stories deserve ears to listen. Thank you.
Stories to tell and to listen. Thank you so much, Lauren, for that wonderful valedictory statement, if you will, for our event this morning. Today, the 5th of October, 2022, is a particularly auspicious day in my country, India, and I know there are many who hail from my country who are here this morning. It's the day which marks the triumph of good over evil, which we call Vijayadashmi, Victory Day. And it was on this day, actually, Dussehra, as we call it, 30 years ago in 1992, that I met a gentleman who came to India from California in the United States. His name was Judge William Sheffield, and he had given up the judicial career in California to join the Church of Jesus of Latter-day Saints. And he'd worked tirelessly with a small project in southern India called Pathway, bringing hope, bringing possibility to the street children of a town then called Madras, now Chennai. And I had a wonderful conversation with him. And he told me how, in the mid-'80s, after he had left his legal practice, he wondered where he would be able to raise the money for the philanthropic and charitable work that he wanted to do. And he was sitting with his wife in a hotel dining room in Hong Kong, chopping a banana, when it occurred to him, why not create a banana slicer? And he worked to create this plastic instrument which a child of 2 could use without risking injury to her fingers. He went to Chiquita, the major banana company. They showed little interest, but he was so persuasive they finally took it on. And then in the late 80s, on the United States market and the global market, the banana slicer came into play, bringing with it a rich revenue which he was then able to transfer from the church to Pathways. I mentioned that story not only because of the gratitude so many of us feel to the church for its activities, but also because that story, to my mind, as Lauren suggested, is really one of the power of imagination, of innovation, of education that this conference celebrates. Indeed, Mr. Sespuch, if I may take your very inspirational remarks, the land of the people you come from, the Ute people, take those 3 letters, UTE, as an acronym, if you will. Unleash transformative education. That is why it matters. And I'm particularly privileged to be here in the presence of President Tuminas, who has often cautioned us that the one thing we must remember in all our joy, in all our fulfillment, is the act of repentance. We must repent for where we have sinned consciously or unknowingly. And that is why, again, education comes to the fore. Rob Skinner spoke eloquently about the isolated entities that the United Nations helped bring together. But those isolated entities were not governments or nation states. They choose to remain distant and isolated when it chooses them. But the isolation of the entities within, the people within them, civil society, the global academic community, has ended and been transformed. And it is a particular honor for me to speak today as a member of the executive board for this conference, led by my cherished friend Baldomero Lago. When you look at the yearbook of the United Nations, one of the many projects that Rob supervises, you'll find the first reference to Utah was a seeds bank at a university here, which brought agricultural seeds from around the world so that there would be a ready repository of them. And what Baldomero has done is to take that seed planted here in Orem and have its fruits and its flowers spring all over the world through this conference. Felipe, my good friend from the United Nations and his co-chair, who once told me that he had wanted to study biology, but he thought, and from that medicine, but he thought it was more important to care for the world as a whole rather than one person at one time. Jayashri, a member of our board, the Chief of Education Outreach at the United Nations, the producer of a play called Exonerated, about 6 persons on death row, each of whom was innocent, but each of whose innocence had to be reproven. Again, a reminder that there is no absolute truth, that there is nothing which cannot withstand academic scrutiny. Some years ago, Charles Schulz, in his Peanuts cartoons, had Charlie Brown say, "Who says you cannot question the science?" That is the most anti-science statement of all, because all science begins with questioning the science. Look at the news today of our 3 Nobel laureates in chemistry, Karen Pertozzi, Morton Meldal, and Barry Sharpless. What they have achieved at one level is abstruse and technical, and yet at another level, as the citation suggests, they have shown that you need not overcomplicate matters. Matters can be simple, the Lego, if you will, of the human system. And, as Dr. Bertozzi said, doing chemistry inside living human beings, making sure the right medicine reaches the right target within the human body. That, again, I would submit, is a metaphor for the Sustainable Development Goals, to make sure the right remedy reaches the right destination at the right time. And that is where scholarship comes in. We are proud to have had with us on the executive board scholars like Dr. Susana Mosquera, who has written so extensively about the role of faith and religion in national and global discourse. Inigo Arbiol Onate, who's spoken of business diplomacy, the power of the private sector to build bridges where governments fall short. Of Elsia Fangembela, who has worked on the role of women in peacekeeping operations at the United Nations. Of our friend who was earlier spoken about by Baldomero, Yuan from the United Nations University, Yuan Huan Chan from the United Nations University initially, and now with the UN Relief Web, who is contributing to humanitarian action, which again underlies the purpose of the goals. Mark Charlton of De Montfort University in the United Kingdom, who's not here but is ably represented by Dr. Kim Sadek. Mark is responsible for the 1 Square Mile project, bringing the wisdom of the university right onto the ground of the university and its territory around in Leicester. So we have so many of these stories which come to mind as we meet at this conference today. and unleash transformative education. Stories and lessons that show us why it is important for us, at whichever point we are, in geography or time, to be there for that moment. Baldomero was very generous in speaking about our meeting 3 years ago. We met at a restaurant in New York called La Pecora Bianca, the white sheep. And that brought to mind the lovely story with which you may be familiar of the little prince who lands in the desert where the aviator's aircraft is stuck and says, "Please draw me a sheep." And the aviator first draws a boa constrictor, and then he draws a sheep which proves to be too sickly. And finally, tired of this, he simply draws a box and says, "Your sheep is inside." And the little prince says, "Yes, that is my sheep." And that is again a model for us. The sheep is inside. We can find the key. We can find the way to open it, to let that sheep emerge, and in that process prove yet once again why it matters. Thank you. It's now my honor to officially declare our conference open.
Thank you very much, Ramu. Thank you very much for all of those individuals that have participated at this conference at this point. I just want you to know we are just a couple minutes behind schedule. We will have our next event happening in 10 minutes, so we can have a 10-minute break, and then we'll resume. Let me tell you about what's coming in 10 minutes. This is the special session for the conference on refugees. We have 6 refugees, youth refugees that have come from many different areas around the world that will be telling their story. This conference, this panel will be moderated by Mr. Rob Skinner, but please don't miss this one. I think it's going to be an incredible event. So let's take a 9-minute break, and we'll be resumed right here. Thank you.